when we take communion, what we are doing is we are declaring, we identify ourselves in the role of God's children. And when we take that, it's like we are reminding ourselves of the covenant relationship we have with him. That our role, God, as your children, is to do your will on this earth while we are here. God has a bigger plan than you or I. And his plan is that you and I steward our relationships, our time, and our resources in a way that honors his kingdom. So you can see, if we're thinking about honoring his kingdom, we're thinking about elevating others, prioritizing the benefit of others. So you can see why things like greed and selfishness and fear, they kind of shrink the timeline of where we panic, right? Or what we focus on. And it goes to the extreme where if someone has an addiction to a chemical, they want heaven right now, right? This extreme despair and fear leads to someone to seek escape. Escape from what and to what? Escape from this tension and frustration and fear they feel, because maybe they're not equipped to manage the tensions of this world. So they take the drug, they drink the drink that helps them escape. The beauty in that, and don't get me wrong, but the beauty in that is they're identifying that I'm not made for this world. I need an escape. And I love, there's a clinical psychologist who says this. He says, when we talk about addiction, the question isn't why are people using drugs to escape? The better question to answer is why isn't everybody using drugs to escape? Because in our heart of hearts, when we look at how hard this world is, we need an escape. But there's something in us, and I think this is our image of God that gives us hope that we don't have to choose the escape to participate in the joy of the Master. Because what we're really chasing when we escape with drugs and alcohol and porn and all those releases that trigger all the chemicals in our brain that make us feel like we're escaping, that is truly and most fully found in participating in the joy of the Master. And that's a function of belief. Of belief. Do you believe that by elevating others, to living a Christ-like life with others, do you believe that that is the will of God? And if you do, the response that you have is a flood of an emotion called joy. And when we don't, it's an act of disbelief. And the hope that we have is that Jesus came. When we take this together, there's a few things that are happening. We're identifying that you are enough for me, God. I believe that you are enough for me. I believe that when I overcome things, I am participating in the will of the Master. And that costs something. It cost Jesus. Because look at how Jesus served us. He wrestled with this kingdom of the world, kingdom of heaven. He had victory over the kingdom of the world through his own death. And I tell you, some of the things that we have to overcome when we participate, it's literally a death inside of us, the death of the old way. And anything, you try to kill anything, and it's going to fight back. But we serve a higher power, a higher purpose, the Spirit inside of us. Does the Spirit inside of you have dominion over your flesh? And when we take this, we're saying, I am a child of God, the Master, and I want to participate in his joy. So we take and we eat this together. Now, the cup is just profoundly beautiful. This would have been the third cup in the Seder meal. This is a reenactment, if you will, of the Lord's Supper, where Jesus is sitting at a table with his 12 disciples. And at the table, they're going through the Passover meal. It's called a Seder, and Seder literally is a Hebrew word that means order, right? And so the order of the meal matters. It's a ceremonial meal. And every element is symbolic of the promise of God and the covenant he has with his people. And this has been going on for thousands of years. They still practice it in the same basic order or Seder every year around the Passover. Jesus would have passed the third cup at this point, and at the third cup, he would have passed it to his disciples, and when he said, "Take and drink, this is my blood that was shed for you," he was mirroring the marriage covenant, just like Paul exposits in Ephesians 5. Because what a traditional marriage proposal would have been is the families would have gathered around the table. The man who wants to propose to the girl, the woman, would have taken the cup, and the cup, he would have said, "This cup represents my life's blood, my very essence." And he passes it to the woman, and she has the choice to either accept it or reject it. And if she accepts it, she's saying, "Yes, I will enter into this covenant of betrothal with you." And it's this beautiful. So when Jesus is passing this cup, imagine what the disciples saw. Because the take and drink this wasn't part of the Seder. It's a curveball. It's part of a marriage proposal. What is he doing? So he said to his buddies, his guys he's been hanging out with for 3 years, he kind of says, "Hey, will you marry me?" He's saying, "Will you enter into the covenant of the blood, of my life's blood, with me?" And when they drink it, they're saying, "Yes, I receive that." So when we take part of the covenant in the communion and we drink, we are saying, "Yes, I make this covenant with you, Jesus." So let's do that together now. One of the words that we used to call this, we call it a communion, which I love the etymology of that word. Just the basic English part is, what does communion mean? Common union. When we share in this together, it binds us to each other. That means we are brothers and sisters, because we're declaring that we are the sons and daughters of the same Father. Through his covenant, we are sons and daughters of the same Father. And now that we carry the role of brothers and sisters, that's something for us to steward. And we care for one another.